Hi,
Hey
Diane.
Leslie. Hey Leslie.
Two Chicago reporters speaking on immigration and politics.
So Leslie, me and you have been sharing our favorite books about journalism, and so I want you to talk about your book that you've been reading about journalism.
Yeah, right now I'm reading Mariana Atencio's Perfectly You, and I love her so much. It's a very interesting book about her journey, her immigration journey from coming from Venezuela to breaking the just breaking the mold and becoming a broadcast journalist in, I believe, New York. And it was interesting to hear that she had to change who she was when she was in the realm of broadcast and the place that she worked. Like, you can't be too Latina, you can't wear gold hoops, and you can't say this and you can't do that. And I think it's important to emphasize that you should be yourself at all times, even when you're covering a story. And I think it produces a humanizing effect. And I am very inspired by her story, how about the conflict in Venezuela and how she started reporting on Venezuela because of her connects, and how she showed that, yeah, I can report on this story and people are actually interested in this. So what she did was she showed a producer what was happening in Venezuela, and the producer was like, okay, I need to see that people are liking this or they're interested in this.
Mhm.
So what she did was she showed that a lot of people were liking it. And she's like, okay, I guess I can do the story now. And so what she did was she did. And she went to Venezuela and she covered um, the protest and the conflict there.
And that has me explain what I've been reading. So I've been reading Our Women on the Ground, which is a bunch of essays from Arab women reporting in the Middle East. And the best part about this book is that it was forwarded by Christiane Amanpour, who's my favorite journalist. Everyone who knows me knows that this is my favorite. She's my favorite journalist. And it's just all about resilience, integrity, you know, strength, reporting on these vulnerable stories, vulnerable people in these communities and in life-threatening situations. So this is a really interesting book. So speaking of Middle Eastern journalists, our guest for today is Othman Al Azzam. He is, one of our old classmates at Northeastern, and he has so much wisdom and so much experience in his life when he reported in Jordan, Libya, and Syria on conflict there. And so we're very excited to welcome him.
So thank you so much, Othman. We miss you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Leslie. You're welcome, Diane. And I'm very glad to be in your show. And here we go.
Here we
How
go.
you Thank you so much. I mean, basically, I graduated from my college 2010. And that time was very interesting time because it was like the Arabic Spring started that time in most of the Arabic country. It starts in Tunis, then moved to the Egypt, to Syria, to Lebanon, all over the country around. So when I graduated, I mean, the career to starting working in journalist, it was like a big one. It was very wild. At the same time, the new websites, the news websites on the internet was like kind of booming in this time in Jordan. I mean, it kind of like sound a little strange, but there is a kind of different time. The technology in 2010 was like a little bit earlier. 2008 was the booming for all these websites. So when I graduated, it was like the market was like kind of very hot marketing, high demand. It wasn't like paying that much, but was like very demand on journalists, like with all these new websites, the news websites on the internet and the social media. In addition of the like the Arabic Spring is going on all over the country around us. So that was like that's about the time when I graduated the college. And then I start working with the newspaper. It's called Al Ghad. Al Ghad newspaper is one of the biggest newspaper in Jordan. I start like working with them as an internship the last year of my college, 2010. We start about like covering the story in the beginning about the parliament and the election, the local election, and starting this level. I work with them like about like 6 months. And after I graduated, I got like a start level job as a reporter, like in like the far like where I live, the local reporter like in the region where I live. It's called like Irbil,
Mm.
the city, like the big city over there. And I started working with them like as a reporter on some like special occasion, like election, like when like some disaster happened or like rain or something, like whatever special, they call me in advance and they ask me to go report or something like that. I worked for them like for like about a year. Then I got another opportunity to work on the TV with the company. It's called ABC, to work a report like in TV report, and that's when the real like story starting, when we like this company, they had a contract to work overseas in like Syria and in Libya. And at that time, like where like if you want to make money, you gotta like work on those countries.
Mm.
So yeah, we start like having like training how to work on the TV a little bit in Jordan to prepare to send us to those kind of country. And that was like about 2013.
So,
Mm.
And yeah, go ahead if you have any
so
question.
you reported in Jordan, Syria, and Iraq.
I did not go to, I went to Syria and to Libya and in Jordan.
Mm. Okay.
What were some of the things that you witnessed while reporting in those countries?
I mean, it was like the civil war in Syria. I mean, the revolution in Syria started like in 2011. By 2012, it was like turning kind of violence over there, and kind of like a civil war starting. And at this time, we went over there like at 2013, and I mean, we witnessed one of the biggest chemical attack. It was over there. I mean, at this time, we went over there to cover this event after like it happened in 2012. And at this time, when we went over there, we saw some like kids injury, some family like living in like a tent, because those were like infection from like the chemical attack at that city. And that was one of the worst experience I have been, like people like the evacuation over there, like it's crazy, because like people living in tents just because the chemical attack hit all the like a village over there.
Yeah,
That was so sad.
I
Mm.
imagine. And what did you do when you witnessed those things? I know that you said it was sad to watch, but how did you like cope with what you saw and how did you do it?
I mean, at that time, I mean, I was like the reporter. We were like having like the cameraman, everybody. Like we taking some video. We made the report on the event. We take some interview with the local people. We hear some like a life story about how this happened, and I remember like at this time, this report, it's been like aired by like a French 24, the French channel over there, and some like a major news corporation all over the world, because that was like one of the biggest like covering for life chemical attack in Syria.
Hmm. Can you tell me more about the war and the chemical attacks?
I mean, at this time, the Syrian government, probably until right now, they denied that this happened. But I mean, all the experts in this field, they haven't like evidence to prove. Even the United Nations said this is happening, and there's like so many victims has been like them injury is been very obvious, and like examination by medical experts say like this is like result by a chemical attack. And I mean after that, I mean I recall after that, I mean all the United Nations, they take an action against Syria, and they make them release the chemical weapon after that by the and United States, they took over all this medical weapon. This happened like year after this attack, and that was like the result. All this after this said attack. I mean that was the nice thing happened after that, or the good thing.
Hmm. And were you scared to report, like in those regions, in those conflicts? Was your life ever at threat? Because those are dangerous, like chemical weapons, bombings always happening.
I mean, there never been like a direct threat into my life, but it was like there is a high risk in this kind of jobs. I mean, I know some people personally. I know people they got injured in those like incidents in Libya. I know a guy, he lost his like leg. Just I mean, he lost his leg like the part a little bit, and they replaced it with some like metal. But he still, I mean, that was like a result of incidents in Libya. So yeah, those kind of job, it has some like risk on it, but you know, this is the choices you make. I mean, everybody knows in advance, so if you want to work this kind of job, there's like a high chance of risk. But you know, that's the thing about it. If you have the desire to do it, it's your choice.
Yeah, and so what made you want to come here? And what's the goal right now? Do you want to report here, or do you see yourself reporting right now, going back to those countries and continuing those efforts? So what is your goal right now?
I mean, but after 2014, after I had like a few like an experience in those country, actually I did not feel like I'm gonna keep doing this anymore, so I decided to get something more quiet. My family, I mean, they were like very strict about that. I mean, my dad, I remember he told me like it is time to change. You cannot keep doing this forever. I mean, it was like because he knows, I mean, he knows how risky it was at that time. And I mean, then he suggested to me to come here and get another degree and start something else. And that was like the plan. I moved here like about 2015 to get like another degree and start something like kind of like a different life or like a new life. And yeah, finally, like I got my degree this semester. I finished my school, and right now, like I have a degree in CMT from Northeastern, and I'm looking for like a new jobs. Basically, actually, try to change the field a little bit, try to work something in the business instead of like a journalist. Try something new that could be like my new like path.
Hmm.
Something will interest me in the future.
Have you let go of journalism completely, or are you still
Uh,
into it?
I still interested in journalism, but as a hobby. I mean, I still work some like fun little stuff for like overseas news, but I mean, it's not. It's not it would not be like my main career or like that thing will I make money over. I mean, it's just like some hobby or something I would do on the side, but it's not my main thing or like my 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 job to do my daily job.
Um, Reporting in those countries, going back to that, were journalists restricted from certain areas, or how were you doing reporting there, or how were you able to, yeah.
I mean, in Jordan, the situation was kind of like a modern. I'm sorry. In Jordan, the situation was like kind of modern in this thing kind of thing. I mean, you can talk about some certain subject, but you cannot talk about everything. I mean, I remember back day they used to say like, as long as you're not talking about the kingdom family, so you okay. I mean, that was like the gold goal, or the gold rule in any like journalist institution in Jordan. You can't say anything about anybody, but you cannot say anything about the kingdom family. That's like the red
But
line.
what happens if you do report on that family? What happens?
I mean, there is like usually a like a consequences for like I mean, you could lose your job. There's like different kind of punishment. Usually they don't do like a direct punishment. You're not gonna go to jail probably, but probably you would just lose your job, or like you got fired, or like something like that will happen definitely if you talk about like the kingdom family or something like that. Especially if you like covering some like an news, have some evidence. It is depend the situation, but usually those kind of thing, there's like a high consequence for that.
Yeah, so you're restricted from reporting on certain things. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're restricted to reporting some certain thing. I mean, you can talk about everything else. I mean, it's compared to some other country around us. We were like kind of like a better situation. We were seeing ourselves kind of we have a kind of a little bit of democracy, because we compare ourselves to some like dictator country around us like Egypt or Syria. So we feel ourselves better. But basically, it's just like our limit is a little bit higher than them. Just we can't talk about the prime minister, you can't talk about any politician or like any like elected person in the country, but you cannot talk about the kingdom family. So that's the difference.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Othman, for sharing that.
You're
Uh,
welcome.
oh, oh, I thought you were gonna say something, Diane. uh,
I forgot my question. I just
oh,
think it's
okay.
so interesting that um like we're all journalists here, and we're all reporting on things, and Othman hasn't left it completely. He's still reporting on, small things like for Jordan. But I guess what I would ask you is, what's the difference between the reporting here and there? Of course there's a huge difference, but like there's I guess, like, yeah, what would you think is the difference? And especially in the United States, the president keeps saying like the war on media, journalists, and their fake news and all of that. Um, so we would love to hear your opinion on that.
I mean, the free speech is totally different in this country. Basically, you can't say anything about anybody. I mean, there is probably, I mean, different administration has a different approach how to deal with the media. But I mean, the gold rule here, it's a free speech country. You can't say anything about anybody. You can, I mean, if you are a reporter here, I will definitely feel more free, more comfortable to work, because it's, I mean, there is no rules, there is no many limited, you can say anything. Basically, you can like there is more freedom here. So that's a really bright side. Reporting in those kind of country, there is usually very like, you have to get authorization for every single thing. Basically, there's usually like an advance authorization about what's published or what's not in every single major news. So I would not think the reporter here would have this problem.
Hmm.
So that's a big difference like in technical work there.
Yeah. And what about our audience? So as journalists, we are always, we're I guess warning the audience and the readers to really make sure about like to check that they're spreading like real news, not just Facebook posts. Like
Mm.
check your sources, and of course we check our sources as much as we can, um, because that's our job. But what about those people who, are misunderstanding, or news companies who are maybe twisting things? What do we do with that? What do we do about that?
I mean, it's the problem with this kind of thing. It's when the when the when the news websites or when the news company start looking for like the money side more than the news side. I mean, they start using some like interesting headlines just to get more followers, to make more money. So if you have a goal over telling the truth that will affect your trust and your credibility. And when those big corporations start focusing on making money, they will lose them credibility. That's the problem when when those that's the problem when this kind of news, when you see the news from outside is different from like when you open it. They change the headlines because they just want like more followers. The same thing with people like when they should like publish any news, they should check the source, see what's how much this source is credible, and do not like just repeat anything without checking the sources. That's, I mean, that's very important point.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. And even though we're able to report on whatever we want and we have the ability to ask questions and we have the right to receive information from organizations, companies, etc., um, from what you just said about how things are more, the access to information is more um, like it's more accessible, right? And
Hmm.
so what I wanted to ask you is, do you believe that in America that we're doing fair coverage? I know that a lot of media companies, they have like an agenda, or they're tied to a conglomerate, like for example ABC, Disney, right? This huge conglomerate. And so I just wanted to know, do you see that news is and here do you believe that it's more biased, or what have you noticed in terms of the differences?
I mean, the news, it's just like every big agency news has them agenda. That's for sure. There's no, I would not think any big of this news corporation has a non-agenda. They has an agenda, and that's the way they're running their business. I mean, everybody has a different side of the story. I mean, the audience, they should figure it out how to hear the both side, or every all kind of story, and figure out what's the real story. No one gonna tell you the story as is, unless like, not just no one, but most people would not tell you what's the story as is. They will like tell them the way they want you to hear it. And all this corporation here, even like they have their own agenda, or they're looking to make more money. And somehow the way you tell the news, it's make a difference to them, how they running them agency. So I mean, I would think, I mean, the audience, them job to hear every side of the story and figure it out what's the real story. Most of the time here, I mean, I would think some a particular majority take a more advantage, more others on the coverage. I would think some story take more interest in the news more than others. Some like a story in New York would be like more interested, than like some others. Some different story in like a different small city in Iowa or in like Nevada. It's like sometimes the location, because that's, it is all about like how much interesting or how much money they're gonna make from this news, and that's the way what the news do it. So I think here like the source is different. It's not much like, it is not very fair, but at least there is like some like chance for everybody to tell their story.
Yes. Yeah. And in Jordan, was it like that as well? Was news for profit, or how was it?
I mean, it's basically the same thing. Yeah, most of the news it's for profit, or like there's the different. We were like having some like a state news, or like some news running by the government, and some other news running by like a big corporation, or like some business people, or like even politician. So it's the same thing. All the news, it's like have them own agenda, even like either like for money, or like for politician, or like for the government.
Mm.
Mhm. Thank you, Othman.
You're welcome,
Yeah,
Leslie.
thanks. You know, during the last time we all reunited, or the last time we saw each other was in class. We
Yeah.
had news writing together, and Leslie, we had so many journalism classes together as well. And we were keeping up with we were keeping up with all the news that was happening, and it was very overwhelming. But now, like, we're almost in June, literally, and I don't see myself as, I mean, I'm reporting, but I don't see myself as addicted to the news as I was before. So what about you, Othman? How has it been consuming the news? And for you, Leslie, as well.
Uh, well, honestly, probably in the last 3 weeks, I tried to get away from every single news. It's just you gotta like overwhelming, is exhausted, and it's because right now it's like a very hard time with this pandemic, and sometimes it's depression. It's cause you depression when you keep hearing about the same crisis all over again, and death and these cases numbers, and it's go crazy, and actually, I felt way better in the last 3 weeks when I get away from the news. Like when somebody asks me how many, I would say I don't know. I don't know really. I really do not like how many right now. What's the numbers? It's feel better because I mean this you're not gonna change anything, and your knowledge probably you have enough knowledge about how to protect yourself, and that's the point. Other than that, the numbers it's not for us. It's for the expert, and it's really depressing right now with this news. Actually, try to get away from all the news.
Yeah, and especially the news happening right now. Have you heard, Othman, about what's happening in I believe it's Minnesota, right, Diane?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like Minneapolis.
Yeah.
it's
And so you saw what's happening there. There's a lot of fires, like buildings just
that's very
ignited.
sad.
Yeah.
That's very sad. Actually, I mean, actually, I got surprised. We still have this kind of incidents, and it's very unfortunate. I mean, how could this happen? I mean, the story how it starts. It's ridiculous how the police officer treat this like a victim, but at the same time, people should be like be more careful about how to react for this kind of story. I mean, violence is not their solution for sure. I mean, people could be protesting as much as they want, but violence it's not a solution, and violence it's bringing more violence, and that's not the way they run this country. I mean, this country it's like running by united and peaceful, and that's how it's supposed to be all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
and
the third day today. And as you said, Leslie, like the buildings are on fire. Like we saw Target, um, you know,
just yeah,
destroyed.
looted.
Police station also
It's
burned.
it's just chaos. It's just chaos. I mean, we should not have this kind of chaos. I mean, come on. It's they should have more like people should be more responsible. I mean, I mean, what whoever is done, that this officer he should be responsible, and he should be like highly responsible for what he did, and there should be like a fair judgment for this in the court. But I mean, again, violence is not the solution.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that police officer should um,
Yeah, he should take like consequences definitely.
life sentence or something,
Yeah,
life in
yeah,
jail.
yeah, yeah. I mean, he should take like the fair consequence. I don't know what's gonna be, but he
Mhm.
should like had some like a fair trial in the court, and got responsibility for what he done.
Right.
How are the police in Jordan? Is it almost the same thing that you have been seeing in the news recently? Is it like that? Is it
I
how
mean,
is it?
uh, uh, talking about police in Jordan, it's like more restrict than here. It's way more here. I mean, you cannot talk about police a lot. I mean,
Mm.
I mean, there is always their story. It's more believable in the news somehow. I mean, they can take all the evidence away. I mean, the police over there is way more powerful than here. I mean,
Mm.
yeah, it's not, and it's uh, every reporter would be like highly highly restricted if you want to cover like news about like the police. I mean, there isn't like a special report to cover like the daily crime or something like that. Those people usually like they have highly restricted about what they publish or not. Anything related to the police has to be like come like in a nice way. You cannot just you have to make the police always look nice. That's basically what's the rule. about the police.
Yeah, and was it hard to report on like crime stories there, or um and knowing that they will like change the narrative? So how did you report on stories when you just told me that? So
I mean, honestly, I haven't like done a lot about crime, but I know like reporter they used to be like sometimes very embarrassing when they like tell their story, and they have evidence, but somehow this their evidence they take away from them, and they got like they lose the credibility just because those like security they have over authority to take this evidence away, like for like a judge from like a judge order or something like that. You can take all this evidence, and all these journalists they lose their credibility.
Yeah. Well, lastly, I want to ask you, so what do you think about the future of journalism? Now, I know it's everyone thinks of journalism like like financially unstable, and they think journalism doesn't really have a future, or it does, but you won't really make profit out of it like you used to. Like how you said 2010 was the hot year for journalism, especially in the Arab world. So what do you think of the future of it?
I mean, journalists, it's like it's as used to be. It's always will be. It's just a hard bath. In the beginning, it's very hard to stick in. I mean, I would think like if you want to work in this field, you need at least to put down 5 years from your life with like not much. Most of them would be like working for like a minimum payment or like a internship to get like a names, and that's the competition. It's like a lawyer, you gotta like work at least for like 5 years, those just to build your name or to get your path, then you're gonna like start to feel like you really make a difference. I mean, it's definitely the future. I mean, journalists, it's always has the future. I mean, right now it's all about the news, the data, the information. It's one of the most valuable thing right now. So I mean, all the future, it's all for the journalists. They have all the future for sure, but it's a hard path right now. It's very tough. It's not easy. It's a highly like there is a lot of competition, and at the same time, I mean, it's there is a lot of rejection, how to tell the truth there. So you gotta choose your way very carefully.
yeah, and it was so fun having you in class.
Yeah, that was like so fun.
That
Thanks
was
so
so
much.
fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
we
been
learned
a
a
lot.
lot from you.
I'm gonna miss the school for sure, actually.
Oh,
Well, thank you so much, Othman. We
You're
really
welcome,
enjoyed
Dan.
having you,
you.
and yeah,
You're welcome, Diane. You're welcome, Leslie. Wish you luck.
thank you everyone for tuning into Rabiosa Medina Radio's third episode on a reporter's story on the Middle East. It was great having Othman Al Azzam, who's one of our old classmates at NEIU, and have him teach us about, his experience on reporting in Libya, Syria, and Jordan. It was great having him, and stay tuned for every Monday. We have a new episode.
We will have a special guest for episode 4. She is an award-winning journalist and a very respected person in the Latino community here in Chicago, and we love her so much, and we're so happy that we will be talking to her. It is Maria Hinojosa from NPR's Latino USA.
And thank you to 20 Elbridge for the cover music, and also the cover art by Arte Triste. Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. We appreciate you, and we'll see you soon.